In the darkness of Isengard's ruins, a curious hobbit crept towards something wrapped in cloth. Pippin's hands trembled as he pulled away the fabric. A perfect black sphere, smooth as glass, heavy as stone. He touched it, and suddenly the eye, filling his vision, burning, searching, a terrible voice like iron scraping stone. "Who are you? Where is it? The prisoner, does he have it?" Pippin's screams shattered the night. Gandalf came running, a simple crystal ball, an innocent tool of sight and communication. But in the wrong hands, or the wrong eyes, it becomes something far more dangerous. These are the Palantíri, the Seeing Stones, and their story begins not in darkness, but in the light of creation itself. In the Undying Lands, in days so long ago that time cannot be measured in years, there lived the greatest craftsman the world has ever known, Fëanor. The name itself means spirit of fire, and never was a name more fitting. Of all the Noldor, the Deep Elves renowned for their craft and knowledge, Fëanor stood alone in skill and vision. His greatest work, the one for which he is remembered and cursed throughout the ages, was the fashioning of the 3 Silmarils. These were jewels that captured the very light of the 2 trees of Valinor, imperishable and holy, and they became the doom of his entire line, inspiring the oath that led to kinslayings, wars, and tragedies that echo through all the ages of Middle-earth. But here's what many forget. The Silmarils were not Fëanor's only masterwork. As Tolkien tells us in the Silmarillion, quote, "Yet other crystals he made also, wherein things far away could be seen small but clear, as with the eyes of the eagles of Manwë. These were the Palantíri. The name comes from Quenya, the High Elven tongue, combining Palan, meaning far, and Tyr, meaning watch, literally, that which looks far away. The Farseers, the Seeing Stones. Now, there's an interesting scholarly debate here. Gandalf, when he explains the Palantíri to Pippin, says, "The Noldor made them. Fëanor himself maybe wrought them." That word maybe has sparked countless discussions. Did Fëanor create them alone, or did he teach other Noldorin craftsmen who then made them as well? The Silmarillion's index states definitively that they were made by Fëanor in Aman, but Tolkien himself introduced that ambiguity through Gandalf's words. Perhaps some were Fëanor's personal work, while others were created by those he taught. Or perhaps Christopher Tolkien, editing his father's texts, made certain what the professor left deliberately uncertain. What we do know is this. These crystals represented a marvel of craft that would never be equaled. Many were made in the elder days. How many we cannot say, but of those, 7 would be brought to Middle-earth, and those 7 would shape the fate of kingdoms. Think about the parallel here. Fëanor's 2 supreme achievements, the Silmarils and the Palantíri, both became instruments of tragedy, but their tragedies were fundamentally different. The Silmarils inspired obsessive desire. Elves and men killed to possess them. They were objects of lust, greed, and oath-breaking. Their very beauty became their curse. The Palantíri, by contrast, revealed the user's own heart. They didn't corrupt by being desired. They exposed what was already there. Pride, despair, ambition, duty twisted beyond reason. The stones themselves remained neutral, incorruptible. They were tools, and tools reveal the hands that wield them. The Palantíri existed in Aman for thousands upon thousands of years. How they were used in Valinor, what the Valar and Eldar saw through them, Tolkien never tells us. But in the Second Age, 7 of these stones would journey east, crossing the Sundering seas to Númenor. They came as gifts. During the reign of Argamilzor, the 23rd king of Númenor, the elves were forbidden from visiting the island. The Númenorians had begun their slow descent into pride and shadow worship, and the faithful, those who remained loyal to the Valar and friendly to the elves, found themselves increasingly isolated. To Amandil, lord of Andunia and leader of the faithful, the Eldar gave the 7 Palantíri, a means of seeing across distance when physical presence was forbidden, a lifeline of connection when darkness gathered. Amandil's son was named Elendil. Remember that name. Now, these weren't identical stones. They varied in size and power. Some were small enough that a single person could lift them, about a foot in diameter. Others, particularly the Master Stones, were massive, 3 feet across, requiring multiple men to move them, weighing so much they needed specialized marble tables with depressions to hold them secure. And here's a crucial detail. There was an 8th stone that never left the west. In the White Tower of Avalona, on the island of Tolkien, in sight of Valinor itself, stood the Master Stone, the mightiest of all Palantíri. It could oversee all the others, a supreme sentinel that remained in the undying lands. The Palantíri waited in Númenor as the shadow deepened, as Sauron corrupted Ar-Pharazôn, as the Great Armada sailed west in blasphemous war against the undying lands themselves. And then came the downfall. In the year 3319 of the Second Age, the Valar broke the world. Númenor sank beneath the waves in a cataclysm of fire and water. Millions died. An entire civilization, the greatest kingdom of men that would ever exist, vanished beneath the sea. But Elendil the Tall and his sons, Isildur and Anarion, escaped. 9 ships fled the destruction, and with them came the 7 Palantíri, rescued from the deep. The following year, Elendil established the realms in exile. Arnor in the north, where he ruled, Gondor in the south, where his sons held sway. And the 7 stones were distributed between them as instruments of communication and vigilance. 3 went north to Arnor, 1 in Elostirion, the tallest tower of the Tower Hills, 1 in Amon Sul, which you know as Weathertop, and 1 in Annúminas, Arnor's capital. 4 went south to Gondor, 1 in Osgiliath, the great city on the Anduin, 1 in Minas Ithil, Isildur's city of the moon, 1 in Minas Anor, the Tower of the Sun, and 1 in Orthanc, the Black Tower of Isengard. For centuries the stones served their purpose. Kings gazed through them to coordinate defense, to watch for threats, to maintain unity across vast distances. They were exactly what Fëanor had intended, tools of foresight and connection. But nothing lasts forever in Middle-earth. Each age is less bright than the last, and one by one the Palantíri were lost to disaster, war, and folly. The first catastrophic loss came in the year 1437 of the Third Age. Civil war had erupted in Gondor, the terrible kin strife, when Castamir the usurper overthrew the rightful king. In the fighting, the great city of Osgiliath burned, and the Master Stone, the largest and most powerful of all 7, the one that coordinated the network, fell into the river Anduin. Gone. 3 feet in diameter, impossibly heavy, somewhere in the riverbed or rolled to the sea. Unfinished Tales tells us it was never recovered, and likely never could be. Too large for men to lift, even if they found it. Think about that image for a moment. An indestructible seeing stone, still functioning perhaps, lying in the darkness at the bottom of a river, seeing nothing but water and fish, and the shadows of boats passing overhead, for century after century after century. The second loss came in the year 1975, when Arnor finally fell. The last king, Arvedui, whose name means last king, and who knew his doom, attempted to flee north with the Palantíri of Amon Sul and Annúminas. His ship was caught in the ice of the Bay of Forochel. In the frozen northern seas, the vessel foundered. The king drowned, and 2 more Palantíri vanished beneath the ice. Unfinished Tales notes they are highly unlikely to ever be recovered. Somewhere under the ice, perhaps still entombed, 2 perfect spheres lie in darkness, ageless, indestructible, seeing nothing for 3,000 years. 4 stones remained, and that's when Sauron made his move. In the year 2002 of the Third Age, after a 2-year siege, the city of Minas Ithil fell to the Nazgûl. The Ithil stone was taken to Barad-dûr. Sauron now possessed a Palantir. And this changed everything. You see, the stones cannot lie. This is crucial. Gandalf makes this absolutely clear. The stones do not lie, and not even the Lord of Barad-dûr can make them do so. The Palantíri show only truth, always. But here's the terrible thing. A strong will controlling one stone can choose what another user sees, can select which truths to reveal and which to conceal, can arrange reality to create false impressions without ever actually lying. Sauron didn't need to corrupt the stones. He corrupted the network. With the Ithil stone in his possession and his will vastly stronger than any mortal's, Sauron could now dominate anyone who dared to use a Palantír. Not through magical corruption, the stones themselves remained pure, but through sheer force of will and selective truth-telling. Two men would learn this the hard way. Sometime around the year 2759, Saruman the White came to Orthanc. The stewards of Gondor granted him the keys gladly. Here was one of the Istari, the wizards sent to oppose Sauron. Surely Isengard would be well guarded in his hands. Saruman found the Palantír hidden in the tower, and he began to use it. At first, perhaps, he believed he was being clever, gathering intelligence, using Sauron's own tools against him. Saruman had always been proud of his knowledge, his subtle plans, his understanding of the rings of power. But pride is a crack through which corruption seeps. Sauron knew exactly how to play him. Jane Chance, a Tolkien scholar, notes that Saruman's fall was seeking godlike knowledge through the stone, trading wisdom for mere information, providence for speculation. Sauron showed him what his pride wanted to see. The growing power of Mordor, yes, but also the promise that one who possessed the ring might challenge Sauron himself. He fed Saruman's envy of Gandalf, his desire for the ring, his belief that he, the wise, could control what Sauron could not. Slowly, over decades, Saruman was ensnared, not through lies, Sauron never lied to him, but through truth, carefully arranged to nurture every seed of pride and ambition already growing in the wizard's heart. By the time of the War of the Ring, Saruman had become a pale imitation of Sauron, breeding his own Uruk-hai, seeking the ring for himself, betraying the very purpose for which he was sent to Middle-earth. The other user of the Palantíri was very different. Denethor, son of Ecthelion, became steward of Gondor in the year 2984 of the Third Age. He was not a weak man, not a fool, not easily corrupted. In fact, he was perhaps the most formidable mortal leader remaining in Middle-earth. Proud, yes, but also wise, dutiful, and deeply committed to the defense of his realm. Secretly, Denethor had been using the Palantír of Minas Anor, the Anor stone. He used it as a tool of statecraft, to understand Sauron's movements, to probe the enemy's strength. And here's what makes his tragedy so much more profound than Saruman's. Denethor was never corrupted. He never betrayed Gondor. He never served Sauron. He never submitted to the enemy's will. The contest between Denethor's will and Sauron's was genuine. As Unfinished Tales tells us, Denethor was too great to be subdued to the will of the Dark Power. Sauron could not break him, could not turn him, could not make him a traitor. What Sauron could do was drive him to despair. Remember, the stones show only truth. Denethor saw real things. The vast armies of Mordor, real. The orcs breeding in Minas Morgul, real. The corsair fleet sailing north with black sails, absolutely real. What Sauron concealed was just as important. He showed Denethor the approaching black ships. He did not show that Aragorn would capture them and bring reinforcements instead of doom. He showed overwhelming force. He did not show the hope that remained. The effort of these confrontations aged Denethor rapidly. The burden of knowledge without hope, the weight of truth arranged to destroy the spirit. And when he believed his son Faramir was dying, when he saw the Black Fleet coming up the Anduin, when he looked into that stone and saw only darkness and defeat, Denethor's mind broke. On March 15th, 3019 of the Third Age, Denethor II, 26th steward of Gondor, attempted to burn himself and his son alive on a pyre. When Gandalf and Pippin stopped him from murdering Faramir, Denethor seized the Palantír, climbed onto the pyre, and ordered it lit. Quote, "So passes Denethor, son of Ecthelion." He died clutching the seeing stone, and his burning hands left a permanent mark. Afterward, that Palantír showed to most viewers nothing but Denethor's hands aflame, burning forever. Not corruption, despair. A good man who saw too much, bore too much, and broke under the weight of truth without hope. But there was one who used the Palantír righteously. After the fall of Isengard, when Grima Wormtongue threw the Orthanc stone from the tower, Gandalf retrieved it, and he gave it to Aragorn. The heir of Elendil had, as he himself said, both the right and the strength to use it. The right as the lawful descendant of the one who brought the stones to Middle-earth. The strength, barely, to contest with Sauron directly. And contest he did. Aragorn deliberately revealed himself to Sauron through the stone. This wasn't an accident or a trap, it was a strategic confrontation. He showed the enemy the reforged sword Anduril. He declared his lineage. He challenged Sauron's assumption of inevitable victory. As Aragorn tells it, "I am Aragorn, son of Arathorn, and am called Elisar, the Elfstone, Dunedain, the heir of Isildur, Elendil's son of Gondor. Here is the sword that was broken and is forged again." It was, in his own words, a bitter struggle. Even with rightful authority, even with the strength of his will and the legitimacy of his claim, the battle to wrest control from Sauron nearly broke him. But he prevailed, and he learned crucial intelligence, the threat of the Corsair fleet, which led him to take the paths of the dead and seize those very ships. More than that, he planted doubt in Sauron's mind. After millennia of growing power, after believing himself unopposed and inevitable, Sauron suddenly faced the heir of his ancient enemy, wielding the sword that had cut the ring from his hand. Aragorn observed afterward, "He is not so mighty yet that he is above fear. Nay, doubt ever gnaws him." That doubt made Sauron hasty, made him attack before he was ready, gave Frodo the opening to reach Mount Doom. One man, using a tool of Fëanor's making righteously, turned the tide of the war. So what happened to the 7 Palantíri? Let's account for them. The Osgiliath stone, lost in the river Anduin, year 1437, 3 feet in diameter, lying somewhere in the riverbed or rolled to the sea, unrecovered and likely unrecoverable. The Amon Sul stone and the Anúminas stone, lost in the frozen bay of Forochel, year 1975, when Arvedui's ship sank. Entombed in ice, possibly still there 3,000 years later, indestructible witnesses to eternal darkness. The Ithil stone, captured by Sauron in year 2002, taken to Barad-dûr, presumably destroyed when the Dark Tower fell at the end of the Third Age, though Palantíri are so durable that perhaps even Mount Doom's fire, the same fire that unmade the One Ring, would be required to truly destroy one. The Anor stone, scarred by Denethor's death, year 3019. It remained in Minas Tirith, but its fate after the War of the Ring is uncertain. Did it stay with Aragorn as king? Was it eventually taken west? Did its vision of burning hands ever fade? We don't know. The Orthanc stone, given to Aragorn after Isengard fell. He used it successfully and presumably kept it during his reign. Its ultimate fate is also uncertain. Did the king keep it as a tool of his realm, or was it taken west when his time ended? The Elostirion stone. This one is special. It was different from the others, made only to gaze westward, toward the Tower of Avalone and the Master Stone in Tol Eressëa. After Elendil's death, the High Elves took it into their care. They made pilgrimages to the Tower Hills to look upon Valinor and remember their home. And in September of 3019, when the ring-bearers departed Middle-earth, Círdan placed the Elostirion stone aboard the last ship. At last, after all the ages of exile, one Palantir returned to the undying lands. 7 stones journeyed from Aman to Númenor to Middle-earth. 4 were lost to disaster, 2 have uncertain fates, and 1 went home. So, what does Tolkien want us to understand through the Palantíri? These stones embody one of his central themes, that technology, tools of power and knowledge, are morally neutral, neither inherently good nor evil. What matters is the hand that wields them and the heart that guides that hand. Fëanor created them in innocence, as instruments of sight and connection. The Eldar gave them as gifts to maintain bonds of friendship. Elendil distributed them to coordinate the defense of the free peoples. But the same stones that served those good purposes became instruments of corruption, despair, and domination. Not because they changed, but because they revealed and amplified what was already in their users. Joseph Pearce, another Tolkien scholar, draws a direct parallel to broadcast propaganda in World War II and Cold War communications technology. The Palantíri demonstrate how information technology can be weaponized through selective truth, showing real things arranged to create false impressions. And there's a modern irony worth noting. Palantir Technologies, the data analytics and surveillance company, named itself after these very stones, tools that promise foresight and security, but carry within them the seeds of hubris and overreach. Tolkien wrote the Palantíri in the 1940s and 50s, witnessing radio propaganda, the emergence of television, and the atomic age's forbidden knowledge. He understood intuitively what we're still grappling with today, that tools promising mastery and sight can deliver manipulation and blindness, that users believe they control the tool while the tool shapes them. The lesson isn't to reject knowledge or tools. Aragorn's righteous use of the Orthanc stone proves that. The lesson is that wisdom must guide knowledge, that authority must be matched with humility, that hope must temper understanding, and that some insights, some foresight, can burden the soul beyond its capacity to bear. Denethor's tragedy is the most profound, precisely because he wasn't corrupted. He saw truth, and truth without hope destroyed him. Let's return to where we began. Fëanor in his workshop, crafting crystals of impossible clarity. He made the Silmarils, and they inspired greed, oath-breaking, and wars that reshaped the world. He made the Palantíri, and they revealed the hearts of those who gazed into them, for good or ill. Both creations were born from genius, crafted in beauty, intended for wonder. Neither was evil in itself, but both became instruments of tragedy. And yet, there's a crucial difference. The Silmarils corrupted by inspiring desire, people killed to possess them. The Palantíri corrupted by revealing what was already there, pride, ambition, despair. No one could righteously possess a Silmaril after Fëanor's oath, but Aragorn could righteously use a Palantir. The Seeing Stones represent Fëanor's more subtle legacy, not the brilliant, obvious beauty of captured light, but the deeper, more complex gift of sight across distance and time. A gift that demands wisdom to use well, a technology that reveals as much about the user as about what is seen. In the end, 4 Palantíri lie lost in darkness, beneath rivers, beneath ice, perhaps destroyed in the fall of Barad-dûr. 2 have uncertain fates in the hands of the rightful king or taken west, and 1 returned home to the undying lands, carried by those who had earned their passage. From Fëanor's workshop to the bottom of the Anduin, from the glory of Númenor to Denethor's pyre, from Sauron's domination to Aragorn's triumph, the Palantíri witnessed it all, neutral observers, reflecting the glory and folly of those who dared to look into their depths. They were seeing stones, and what they saw, most clearly of all, was us. Fëanor gave Middle-earth 2 legacies: the Silmarils, beauty that inspired obsession; the Palantíri, sight that revealed the heart, one corrupted through desire, the other through what was already within. And somewhere beneath the Anduin, beneath the ice of the Bay of Forochel, 4 perfect spheres still rest, indestructible, ageless, seeing nothing but darkness for 3,000 years. Tools meant to bridge distance, now witnessing only their own solitude. Perhaps that's the most haunting truth of all, that technology outlasts the hands that wielded it, and the purposes for which it was made. If you enjoyed this exploration of Fëanor's forgotten masterwork, subscribe to Ranger of the Realms. And let me know in the comments, would you dare look into a Palantir, knowing it might reveal truths you're not ready to face? Until next time, may your vision be tempered with wisdom and your knowledge guided by hope.